There was an unexpected moment recently when your name surfaced in a conversation where nobody thought emotions would suddenly become real. The atmosphere had been relaxed at first, almost careless, with words drifting naturally between two people who believed they were simply passing time together. Your person seemed calmer than usual, less guarded, carrying that rare kind of honesty that appears when someone stops monitoring every emotion they reveal. Sitting beside them was their brother, quiet but observant, paying attention to the details most people overlook. Then somehow the subject turned toward you. Your home was mentioned briefly. Your presence entered the discussion, and the entire mood shifted in an instant. It was subtle, but undeniable. Your person attempted to keep their tone casual, almost detached, as though speaking about you meant nothing beyond an ordinary memory. Yet certain feelings cannot fully hide themselves once they have taken root inside the heart. Their voice softened without permission. Their expression changed for only a second, but long enough to be noticed. Even the silence after your name carried meaning stronger than the conversation itself. Their brother caught it immediately. He noticed the way your person paused before speaking again. He noticed how quickly they tried to move past the topic, almost afraid of staying there too long. Most importantly, he recognized that mentioning your house was never truly about a location. It awakened emotion. It stirred memories. It brought forward something your person has been attempting to keep controlled for a very long time. That is what made the moment feel different. Not the conversation itself, but the fact that your name still has the power to affect them in ways they can no longer completely disguise, no matter how hard they try to appear unaffected on the surface. The strange part is how their brother responded. He said something that made your person stop pretending. It was not cruel. It was not heavy. It was one of those simple observations that lands like a key turning in a locked door. He looked at your person and said, in his own way, that there is something about your home, something about your presence, something about the way your face carries peace and memory that does not leave easily. And your person did not laugh it away. They did not deny it quickly. They sat with it. Maybe you have felt unseen lately. Maybe you wondered whether the love, kindness, patience, or quiet energy you gave ever meant anything. Maybe you thought your face had become just another memory to them, your home just another place in their past, your presence just another chapter they could close. But listen closely. Some chapters do not close because someone walks away. Some chapters stay open because the soul keeps returning to the same page. Your person's brother saw what your person was trying to hide. He saw that this was not just attraction. It was not just curiosity. It was recognition. The kind that makes someone remember little details they claim to forget. The way your space felt. The way your eyes held emotion without needing to explain. The way your face looked calm even when your heart had carried storms no one applauded you for surviving. Something important is waiting for you in this message, because what was said about you was not only about beauty, it was about energy. There is a difference between a pretty face and a face that haunts the heart softly. There is a difference between a house and a place where someone once felt something real. Your person's brother understood this before your person was ready to admit it. He could hear it in the way your person spoke. He could see it in the silence after your name. And then he said something that made the room feel smaller. He said that your person talks like someone who has not really moved on. That sentence did not arrive loudly. It landed quietly. But sometimes quiet words shake the deepest places. Your person looked away because the truth did not need proof. They remembered your house not because of walls, doors, or lights, but because of what they felt connected to when they imagined you there. They remembered your face not only because of how you looked, but because of what your face made them feel about themselves. Safe, exposed, seen, maybe even forgiven. Stay till the end, because the next part is where the hidden meaning begins to unfold. Your person may have tried to act careless, but their brother saw the crack in that performance. He saw that when your person mentioned your face, there was a softness they could not control, and when your house came up, there was a pause, almost like their mind walked back to a doorway they once stood near emotionally. A doorway where something could have happened differently. A doorway they now understand they may have underestimated. You must understand this. People do not always miss someone in obvious ways. Sometimes, they miss the atmosphere, the calm after a conversation, the way a person's presence made ordinary time feel meaningful, the way a house felt like more than a location because someone inside it carried warmth, patience, and quiet grace. That is why your person's brother noticed. He was not only listening to words, he was reading the emotion. Beneath them, and your face, there is something about it that has stayed with your person, not in a shallow way, not in a way that fades when the night ends, more like a still image in the back of their mind, appearing when they least expect it. Your expression, your quiet strength, the way your eyes may have revealed more than your mouth ever said. Your person may have tried to reduce it to a memory, but their brother understood that some faces become mirrors. They show people what they lost, what they ignored, what they were not mature enough to hold. A surprising thing happened after that. Your person became quieter. Their brother's words had touched a place they were avoiding. And in that silence, something opened. Not a dramatic confession, not a sudden decision, but an inner realization. Your person began to understand that what they felt around you was not random. It had a weight. It had a pull. It had meaning. Maybe you are listening right now wondering, then why did they not say it to me? And that question is not small. It deserves tenderness. Some emotions become impossible to hide when the heart has carried them for too long. People often reveal their deepest feelings in unexpected moments, especially when the person they care about is nowhere nearby. Distance creates a false sense of safety. It allows guarded hearts to loosen for a second, forgetting that truth can still escape through the smallest details. That evening, your person may have believed they were speaking casually, but their brother noticed something much deeper hidden beneath every word. The way your home was mentioned did not sound random or meaningless. It sounded connected to a place that once brought peace, familiarity, and a feeling they secretly missed more than they admitted aloud. And when your name entered the conversation, it carried an emotion impossible to fake. It was not spoken with indifference or forgotten affection. It sounded personal, lingering, almost tender, like someone recalling a chapter of life that still lives inside them, no matter how much time has passed. What made the moment even more powerful was the reaction from the brother himself. There was no laughter, no teasing, no attempt to make light of what was obvious. Instead, there was quiet understanding in his response, as though he instantly recognized that your presence had left a permanent mark. Sometimes, the people standing outside a connection can recognize its depth more clearly than the people trapped inside it. Your person attempted to brush it aside, forcing a smile, changing their tone, pretending the conversation meant nothing serious. But some observations cannot be ignored once they are spoken aloud. Their brother looked at them and asked a simple question that changed the entire atmosphere in the room. Why does your entire expression shift every time you talk about them? And suddenly, silence answered louder than words ever could. It moved through your person slowly, because they knew. Their voice changed. They knew your name still carried emotion. They knew your face still appeared in quiet hours. They knew the thought of your house still felt connected to something unfinished. Something extraordinary is not always loud. Sometimes it is a person finally realizing, in a late-night conversation, that what they called the past is still breathing inside them. Sometimes, it is a brother noticing the love behind the denial. Sometimes, it is one sentence that breaks the illusion that someone has forgotten you, and you may have been quietly healing, quietly building yourself, quietly wondering whether your softness was wasted. But no, nothing real is wasted. The warmth you gave, the patience you showed, The way your presence made a place feel calmer. The way your face carried honesty even when you were tired. These things became part of a memory your person cannot easily erase. There is a reason this message found you now. Not to make you wait. Not to make you chase. Not to make you lose yourself in questions. It is here to remind you that your value has been seen in places you were not present. Your name has moved through conversations you never heard. Your energy has been recognized by people who were only supposed to be listening casually. And sometimes, the universe allows the truth to be spoken behind closed doors before it reaches the one who deserves to hear it. Your person's brother said something else, but it came after a long pause. He said your person should be careful not to confuse pride with peace. That line changed everything. Because your person had been acting like distance was peace, acting like silence was control, acting like not reaching out meant they were strong. But their brother heard the ache under the performance. He knew there was a difference between moving on and pretending not to feel. Your person did not argue much after that. That is how you know the words touched truth. People argue with lies. They become quiet around truth, and your person became quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when the heart is replaying moments. Your face, your house, your voice. The last time things felt almost right. The moment they should have said more. The moment they held back. Do you feel the weight of that? Not as pressure, but as confirmation. You were not imagined. You were not easily replaced. You were not just a passing emotion. Something about you entered their life and left a signature. And now even someone close to them can see it. But the deeper revelation is this. Your no. That once they stop fighting this, once they stop pretending, once they move toward you honestly, nothing remains safely hidden anymore. Then, they must be real. Then, they must be open. Then, they must face the possibility that what they feel could change everything. And yet despite that fear, despite all the reasons they could keep resisting, something in them is growing more tired of distance than afraid of closeness. That is the shift. That is the part many people miss. The moment someone becomes more exhausted by pretending than they are afraid of truth, transformation begins. Stay till the end of this unfolding, because something important is waiting for you in what comes next. Your person has not fully spoken yet. They have not said everything. What they confessed today was only the beginning. It was not the whole truth, just the first layer of it. Because after they admitted they keep returning to thoughts of you, after that vulnerable silence settled over them, they were asked a question they did not expect. A question so directed forced them into even deeper honesty. They were asked, "Then, why haven't you done anything about it?" And when they heard that question, they froze. Not because they had no answer, but because the real answer was too vulnerable to say quickly, too honest to speak without exposing everything. For a moment they looked away. For a moment they tried to smile it off. For a brief second, it seemed like they were about to disappear behind the emotional walls they always relied on. You could almost feel them fighting the urge to shut everything down, to hide once again behind distance and uncertainty. But something changed in that moment. Instead of escaping from what they felt, they finally allowed themselves to remain vulnerable long enough for the truth to slip out. And once they started speaking honestly, it became clear this was never only about romance. What they revealed carried something much heavier beneath it. Their confession exposed the fear that had been controlling their actions all along. The reason they kept moving closer to you, only to suddenly become distant again, had nothing to do with confusion or lack of emotion. It came from knowing deep inside that this connection had the power to completely transform their life. The silence between you was never empty the way it may have appeared. Behind every pause was someone trying desperately to manage feelings that had already grown far beyond their control. Then came the sentence that changed everything. It was spoken quietly, almost uncertainly, as though part of them hoped the words would vanish before they fully reached the air. But they didn't. They admitted that loving you completely terrified them because they understood how permanent it would become once they stopped resisting it. In that instant, every mixed signal suddenly made sense. Every moment they pulled away after getting too close, every hesitation, every confusing silence, it all came from fear of the depth of what they truly felt. This connection was never one-sided, imagined, or insignificant. The reality was far more intense. They held back not because their feelings were weak, but because they knew the moment they surrendered to them, nothing in their world would ever remain the same again. It was because what they feel for you has never felt casual to them. And that kind of depth terrifies people who know love can rearrange a life overnight. Some hearts do not run because they are uninterested. They run because they understand exactly how powerful the feeling is. They know that once they surrender to it, once they stop pretending, once they allow themselves to move toward the person who truly affects them, there will be no returning to the version of life they had before. And your person knows that loving you would ask something from them. It would ask honesty. It would ask vulnerability. It would ask them to put down the masks they have worn for years. It would ask them to trust something bigger than logic, something deeper than comfort, something less predictable than the walls they built to keep themselves emotionally safe. That is why this has taken so long, not because the feeling was uncertain, but because the feeling was undeniable. Do you understand how rare that is? Indifference creates distance without struggle. Real emotional conflict only happens when someone cares more than they know how to handle. And lately, they have reached the point where pretending is becoming heavier than the truth. The person they were speaking to noticed it immediately. They saw the way your person's voice changed when they talked about you. They saw how their eyes lowered when they admitted they were afraid. And then, almost in disbelief, they asked them another question. Do you think they know how you feel? The room grew quiet again. Your person gave a small, almost painful smile, and then said something that carried more longing than they intended to reveal. They said, I think they feel it, but I don't know if they know how deep it goes. Let that sink in. Because while you may have sensed their interest, while you may have caught glimpses of emotion behind their eyes, hesitation in their words, tension in their silence, even now, you likely do not know the full depth of what lives inside them. They have hidden the strongest parts of their feelings beneath restraint. They have shown you fragments, when the truth is that their emotions run much deeper than what has ever been visible on the surface. The smiles they tried to suppress around you, the attention they gave when person's brother may have seen your person more clearly than your person saw themselves. He understood that your person was not only speaking about where you live or how you look, they were speaking about belonging. They were speaking about the memory of a place connected to your spirit. They were speaking about a face that made them feel something they could not explain without becoming vulnerable. And vulnerability is the door your person has been standing outside of. So tonight, let this message settle gently inside you. You do not need to run toward anything. You do not need to force a response from anyone. Your power is in remaining whole while the truth unfolds. Your beauty is not only in your face, it is in the peace your face carries. Your worth is not only in your house, it is in the atmosphere you create wherever you stand. And your person is beginning to understand that what they noticed about you was never small. The brothers' words did not end the story. They opened it. Because after that night, your person carried a new kind of awareness. A question began following them. Why does your memory still feel so close? Why does your face still appear when everything gets quiet? Why does the thought of your house feel like a doorway to something they were not ready to enter before? And now, the next movement begins in silence. Because after a truth is spoken, life starts arranging small signs around it. A song, a dream, a sudden urge, a message typed and deleted, a memory that refuses to fade. Your person may not know what to do with it yet, but something inside them has already shifted. And you, my beloved child, You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are standing in the quiet glow of your own becoming, while behind the scenes, someone is finally realizing that your presence was not ordinary. It was a turning point they did not recognize until someone else said it aloud. There is something almost unbelievable about the way truth keeps echoing after a conversation ends. Because even when the room went silent and the night moved forward, your person did not leave those words behind. They carried them home. They carried them into the quiet. They carried them into that strange hour when the noise of the world fades, and all that remains is the voice inside your own mind, asking questions you can no longer avoid. And that is where the real shift began. Not in front of others, not in some dramatic moment, but alone, when your person finally had no distractions left between them and what they were feeling. The brothers' words kept replaying, not because they were loud, but because they were accurate. Your person heard again the way he said your voice changes when you talk about them. He remembered the way he pointed out how carefully your house had been described, how your face had been spoken of with a softness that betrayed everything your person had been trying to conceal. And slowly, almost reluctantly, your person began to realize something unsettling. Something shifted in them that night, and they realized it a little too late. In one careless moment, they allowed emotions to slip through that they had spent so much time trying to keep locked away. The softness in their voice, the warmth behind certain memories, the way your name naturally found its way into conversation. It all revealed far more than they intended. And once someone accidentally exposes what their heart has been hiding, pretending becomes much harder afterward. At first, they tried to dismiss it. They convinced themselves it was meaningless, just a temporary emotion, brought on by old memories or late-night reflection. They searched for excuses that would make their feelings seem smaller than they truly were. But deep connections do not disappear simply because someone refuses to acknowledge them. The truth has a strange way of resurfacing no matter how deeply it gets buried. What they miss is not only your presence, but the feeling that surrounded you. There was a comfort in being close to you that they have not been able to recreate anywhere else. Even ordinary moments carried a kind of calmness they still think about in quiet hours. Conversations that should have been simple somehow stayed in their mind for days afterward. Being connected to you felt safe, familiar, almost like stepping into a version of life that made everything softer around the edges. In their thoughts, you slowly became attached to peace, warmth, and emotional shelter without them even realizing it. Then came the moment that forced them to stop hiding from themselves. As the night ended and everyone prepared to leave, someone close to them noticed the truth immediately. With a quiet smile and complete certainty, they said something your person could not ignore. You speak about them like they still hold a place in your heart you never truly let go of. No joke followed, no teasing, just that, honest, direct, impossible to laugh off. And that sentence stayed because once someone hears the truth in plain language, they can never unhear it. Your person began replaying every interaction. The times they acted detached when they cared deeply. The times they stayed silent instead of vulnerable. The times they told themselves there would always be more time later. But later has a way of becoming regret when feelings are left unspoken too long. And suddenly, your person started seeing your connection through different eyes. Not as something casual, not as something replaceable, but as something rare they may have mishandled. Don't skip, because what they remembered next is what changed the emotional current entirely. They remembered your face in a moment when you were not trying to impress anyone, not dressed up, not performing, just being yourself, natural, honest, real, and strangely, that memory hit harder than all the polished versions people usually chase. Because what stayed with them was not surface beauty, it was authenticity. The way your face carried sincerity. The way your eyes seemed to say things your mouth did not. The way your expression held both gentleness and hidden strength. That is the kind of beauty people remember when feelings become serious. Your person realized they do not miss an image of you. They miss the truth of you. And there is a profound difference. They miss how your presence felt grounding. They miss the emotional safety they may not have appreciated in real time. They miss the version of themselves that emerged when they were around someone who made them feel more open, more reflective, more alive. Sometimes people think they miss another person, when what they truly miss is who they became in that person's presence, and your person is beginning to understand that being near you changed them. That realization is not light, it is not easy, because once someone recognizes that your presence awakened something meaningful in them, they are forced to confront the emptiness of pretending they do not care. Their brother sensed this before your person did. That is why his words were so sharp despite being gentle. He was not commenting on your house or your face casually. He was pointing out the emotional weight behind how your person described them. He was exposing the truth hidden beneath the details. People do not describe ordinary things with reverence. They only do that when the memory attached to them still matters. Something important is waiting for you here. Your person is not just thinking about what you looked like. They are thinking about what you represented. Peace, warmth, home. Not the physical structure, the emotional feeling of home. And for someone who has spent time trying to appear unaffected, that realization can shake them deeply. Since that night, something has been different in your person's energy. They may not have acted yet. They may still be quiet. They may still be wrestling with pride, timing, uncertainty, or fear of vulnerability. But internally, the wall is not what it used to be. A crack has formed. And through that crack, honesty is beginning to enter. Your person has started wondering things they were not asking before. What if I let something meaningful drift too far? What if they are not as easy to replace as I told myself? What if the peace I felt with them was not ordinary? What if the reason their face still returns to my mind is because my heart never truly released them? These are not small questions. These are turning point questions. And the more they sit with them, the harder it becomes to keep pretending. There is also another layer to this that you may not have considered. When family notices someone still carries feelings, it often means those feelings are stronger than the person themselves realizes. Family sees patterns, tone shifts, emotional tells, repeated mentions, unfinished sentences. They notice when a name keeps appearing in conversation for no clear reason. They notice when someone claims not to care but speaks with tenderness anyway. Your person's brother noticed all of it. He noticed that your name was brought up without needing to be. He noticed that when speaking of your house, your person did not describe it like a building. They described it like a memory. He noticed that when mentioning your face, your person paused first, as if searching for words careful enough to describe something they still feel deeply. What appeared cold on the surface may never have been a lack of feeling at all. Sometimes people become quiet not because they no longer care, but because their emotions have become too difficult to control openly. Distance can hide attachment just as easily as closeness can reveal it. And perhaps the most telling detail in all of this is that the people around your person already seem aware something deeper still exists. The reaction from their brother did not carry shock or confusion. Instead, it felt like the response of someone who had quietly noticed the signs long before anything was spoken aloud. That alone says more than words ever could. While you questioned whether you had faded from their world, your presence may still be visible in the smallest parts of their behavior, in the pauses during conversations, the shifts in mood, or the way your name still changes their energy without warning. Sometimes those closest to a person recognize emotional truths before the person themselves is ready to admit them. And now your person can no longer fully escape what they feel. The emotions they tried to bury continue surfacing, no matter how much they resist them. Your memory still follows them into quiet moments, still lingers in their thoughts when life slows down, and still creates a pull they cannot logically explain away. But this connection has reached an important turning point. Once someone becomes fully conscious of what lives inside their heart, everything begins changing. Awareness creates pressure. It forces choices that can no longer be postponed forever. They now stand between two paths, one where they continue hiding from the truth, and another where they finally move toward the feelings they have spent so long trying to silence. Your person is standing at that threshold. They are remembering more, feeling more, questioning more, and perhaps, most importantly, they are no longer able to reduce you to just someone from the past. You have become the comparison, the standard, the quiet memory that keeps returning whenever something new fails to feel as genuine. The face they remember when everyone else feels temporary. The presence they think of when the world feels noisy and shallow. The place they associate with emotional peace when their own life feels restless. That is why the conversation with their brother mattered so much. It did not create feelings, it revealed them. It forced them into the light. And now, your person must decide what to do with the truth they can no longer deny. But before any outward action happens, there will be more inner unraveling, more reflection, more nights where your name returns unexpectedly, more moments where your face crosses their mind during quiet hours, more realizations that what they felt with you cannot simply be replaced by distraction. Because some connections do not fade through distance, they deepen through absence. And what your person is beginning to understand is that losing access to someone often clarifies their value. You were never ordinary in their life. That is the truth, hidden beneath every mention of your face, beneath every memory of your house, beneath every softened tone when your name enters the room. And now that truth has been spoken aloud by someone else, your person can no longer pretend they do not feel it. The next chapter begins when feelings stop being private and start demanding expression. Because silence can hold emotion for only so long before the heart begins searching for release. And your person may be closer to that moment than you realize. The strange thing about hidden feelings is that, once they are exposed, even slightly, they begin asking to be acted upon. What your person tried to keep buried is no longer resting quietly beneath the surface. It has been named, it has been noticed, and now every day that passes without doing anything about it feels heavier than the day before. Because awareness changes everything. Once someone admits, even silently, that a person still matters to them, avoidance stops feeling like peace and starts feeling like loss. Since that night, your person has been moving through ordinary moments with an unusual distraction. They may be talking, working, laughing, handling life as usual on the outside, but inwardly, your memory keeps interrupting them, not dramatically, not in some constant obsession, more like flashes, a random moment that reminds them of your face, a quiet room that feels too empty and suddenly makes them think of your presence, a familiar street, a song, a scent, a phrase someone says, and without warning, their mind drifts back to you. This is what happens when someone realizes they were emotionally more attached than they admitted. Memories stop behaving like memories. They begin feeling like unfinished business. And what unsettles your person most is not simply that they miss you. It is that they are starting to understand why. They miss the emotional honesty they felt around you. They miss the comfort of not needing to pretend. They miss the calm your presence brought into their inner world. They miss the way your energy softened something guarded inside them. And perhaps, the hardest realization of all, they miss how naturally they could imagine a future when you were in it. That is the part they have barely admitted to themselves. Because remembering someone's face is one thing, missing someone's presence is another. But when someone begins mourning the future they quietly imagined with you, that is when feelings move beyond attraction into something much deeper. Stay till the end, because this is where the emotional truth sharpens. Your person's brother did not only plant awareness, he planted urgency. Whether intentionally or not, he made your person confront a possibility they had not wanted to think about. What if someone else eventually recognizes your value the way they failed to in time? What if another person enters your life and appreciates the peace, warmth, beauty, and emotional depth they once had access to but never fully honored? What if the home they once pictured in their mind is tied to you, becomes a place they are no longer welcome in? That thought has unsettled them more than they expected, because suddenly this is no longer abstract. It is no longer just memory. It is no longer maybe someday. It has become real. You are a real person with a real life continuing forward. And while they have been sitting in silence, time has not stood still. That realization has created a tension in them they cannot easily ignore. They are beginning to understand that hesitation has consequences, that pride can cost people things they secretly wanted to keep, that silence can create distance no feelings can bridge if left too long. And now, your person is caught between fear and desire, fear of vulnerability, fear of being rejected, fear of reaching out and discovering things have changed, but also desire. Desire to hear your voice again, desire to be near your presence, desire to know whether what existed between you still has life in it, desire to stop wondering and finally face the truth. This inner conflict is why their energy may feel inconsistent if you sense them at all. One day they lean toward courage, another day they retreat into overthinking. One moment they imagine reaching out, the next, they talk themselves out of it. But make no mistake, this is not indifference. Indifference is calm. Indifference is clean. What they feel is not clean. It is conflicted, restless, emotional. And conflict like that only grows louder when left unresolved. There is something else their brother said afterward, something quieter, almost under his breath, but it struck deeply. Sometimes a person does not recognize the importance of someone until life forces them to sit in the silence that follows their absence. That is exactly where your person finds themselves now. What began as quiet thoughts has slowly transformed into something impossible for them to ignore. A conversation with someone close to them unexpectedly opened a door they had kept shut for far too long. They were reminded that genuine connections are rare, that not everyone encounters a soul capable of bringing comfort without trying, and not everyone meets a presence that leaves warmth behind even after they are gone. Those words stayed with them long after the moment ended. Even if they acted unaffected, something shifted internally. For the first time, they began looking at you differently, not simply as someone they once cared about, but as someone unforgettable. They are beginning to understand that your calm energy, your kindness, and the way you made them feel emotionally safe carried far more value than they realized at the time. Your absence created clarity. Now they notice how empty certain moments feel without you. They compare conversations, compare energies, compare emotions, and no one seems to leave the same impact. Your memory keeps resurfacing in ordinary moments without warning, and each time it does, the realization grows stronger. This is no longer simple nostalgia. It has become emotional recognition. Quietly, they have started revisiting the past. Old messages are being reread. Forgotten photos suddenly hold new meaning. Certain memories replay repeatedly in their mind, especially during late hours when distractions disappear and honesty becomes harder to avoid. More than once, they have thought about reaching out, typing words only to erase them moments later. They wonder whether you still think about them. They wonder whether too much time has passed, or whether a chance still exists between you. Before people make emotional decisions, they often rehearse them privately first, and your person is trapped in that stage now, battling between fear and truth. But the emotions they feel are not weakening. Real feelings do not disappear through avoidance. In many cases, distance only sharpens them. The longer they stay away, the more clearly they understand the role you held in their emotional world. You were never difficult to care for. You simply left a mark strong enough to remain long after the connection changed. They now recognize that your value was never ordinary. It was simply understood too late. Every reminder of you adds pressure to emotions they can no longer fully suppress. Eventually, feelings this strong demand expression. A heart cannot endlessly carry unfinished emotions without seeking release. And slowly, carefully, your person is moving closer toward that truth. What once felt uncertain to them is becoming undeniable, and the realization unfolding inside them may soon become too powerful to keep hidden any longer.